Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we will be listening to the 12th part of What If Deku Didn't Believe All Might and Remained Quirkless. If you enjoy, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing down below, and don't forget to hit that bell icon so you get notified when videos go live. Now, without further ado, let's get into the video. Chapter 24, it's Toga's first day and honestly, it's a miracle no one dies. Oh, and she gets in an argument with Eureka that's never actually dealt with. Aizawa received the first message and only warning message 10 minutes into homeroom. He noticed Eureka also peering down at her phone and texting. He would have told her off if she wasn't getting the exact same information as him. 1A were not prepared for this. What in the hell was Nizu thinking? He pulled himself up from his sleeping bag and glared at them all. Their natter quietened in an instant. Good. He shoved his phone out of the picture so it didn't look like he was completely clueless. A logical ruse he wouldn't have revealed. Eureka didn't pocket her device. He would deal with her punishment later. We have a new student joining us for the foreseeable future, he announced. The protests that broke out were expected but not enjoyed. He wasn't replacing Aiza, and if Aizawa actually had an option in this, he would have left her to Vlad to deal with. He couldn't say that because that would make them angrier that he wasn't giving her a chance. There would never have been a day Shouto wished Nizu could understand human grief to the sun and back if Midoriya hadn't brought the rascal in. He rubbed his nose and flashed his quirk. It was successful to shutting them up. I am not trying to replace Aiza. He was a loved member of the class, and if we had room in 1B I am certain Nizu would have put her in there. The principal, however, has not meaning we have to be the heroes in this situation and welcome her into our class. Eureka, you will be taking on the role of her welcome buddy. Now please look up from your phone. I can assure you the information I have to better than what Midoriya is telling you. She looked up like a deer in headlights and slipped her phone into her pocket. Sorry Aizawa-sensei. I'll do my best to make her feel welcome. Good, now do we have any questions? I'll let her introduce herself. As per usual with his class, a million questions were asked and not a single hand went up other than Yayorozu's. Everyone else was yelling out the normal questions. Why is she joining so late? Who is she? Why can't she be in 1B even if there's no space? What's her quirk? Was she the girl outside the front gate staring earlier? Would she be joining if Aiza was still here? How'd Yue accept her halfway through the year? Have you met her, Aizawa-sensei? Eureka, can I sit with you at lunch? I want to meet her. When's she coming in? He sighed. She's in our rehabilitation program. I am sure she was gladly show her quirk to you when you meet her. She would still be in our heroics program if Aiza was alive. This is not a replacement. Yue does not do replacements. Nizu considers her mentally sane enough, however if she does anything that remotely crosses a line with any of you, tell a member of staff. We will take action immediately. She'll be joining you for heroics and then as if she were a normal member of your class. Treat her as one. Is that all? Crickets. They all agreed and Aizawa sighed as he crawled back into his sleeping bag. Good. I'll be here if you get any questions. Do your homework for the last few minutes if you have any. They wouldn't do their homework. Aizawa knew his she hadn't when he joined the hero course either. It was all natter over what she was like and who she would be friends with. He didn't miss the glances being sent to Yayorozu. She had been the closest to Aiza. With her own dutiful personality she was sure to try and befriend Toga. The silent concern was well hid under the layers of theories people were coming up with. Especially with the new knowledge that she was a criminal now in rehab. They wanted to know if Eureka was safe being her welcome buddy. They were curious as to what crime she had committed. Considering she came up with a boy infamous for muggings, it wasn't hard to guess. Mina was certain she was a bank robber, while Todoroki wondered if she had assaulted a hero on their way to work only to be caught. They were all pretty valuable theories. They would all be very disappointed if Nizu's guess that she stole from McDonald's as well as killing several people was true. For them that was just boring, not the cause of too much paperwork and a near suing. He had so much to teach them still. Another thing they had yet to learn was awareness. Not a single one of them noticed him rolling out of the door when Midnight stomped in with her high heels. Noticing him was for third years, but Nemuri in stompy boots, you really couldn't miss them. Shinsu was the last down to their usual table at lunch. Izuku had hurried down as soon as the bell went. He rambled on about having to make sure she didn't stab someone's eye out and that he'd see Shinsu once she was secure. That itself was weird. He knew Midoriya got into a variety of strange mishaps with Mei, but they never included having to stab someone's eye out. There was also the mysterious case of what made him an hour late for the day that was confidential. Midoriya had been tight-lipped. The most that could be extracted from the conversation was "you'll see." That was ominous as fuck, and Hitachi didn't like it. Being ominous was his thing. There were 3 people sitting down when he shoved his bag on the seat beside Izuku. Okako was in her usual space and Izuku was as well. What was new was the blondie eating noodles out of the bowl without any cutlery. He raised an eyebrow but kept his mouth shut. His phone buzzed when he sat down and opened his mouth. Contact, actually sleeps. Actually sleeps, she's a friend of mine. In the hero course because Reformity. Insomniac, you're friends with a juvenile. Really? Actually sleeps, yeah, she was gonna join the league, dragged her onto the train. Insomniac, LOL. Who are you texting, Izuku? Both boys looked up like a deer caught in headlights. I was texting Mei, she eats my time like a worm and heavens knew what you would do with only Okako and Hitachi keeping watch. He explained, I can't get the train today because I'm needed down there apparently. I don't even know why. Toga laughed, that's so sweet. Izuku has all his attention on me and Yurika-chan does as well and we're all going to be best of friends. I can tell. Who's your sleepy friend? She stared at Shinsu with beady eyes. He backed away into Midoriya's side instantly. He whispered in his friend's ear. I assume she usually stares at people like that. Midoriya didn't respond. He just death glared at Toga while Yurika whacked her arm. That successfully took the attention off of Shinsu and onto Yurika. Stop that, she hissed, just act normal or don't purposefully creep people out. Himiko rolled her eyes, and stared at her food instead. I still want to know who your friend is, Izuku. Shinsu Hitachi. He pulled himself out of his friend's side so his answer wouldn't be muffled. He twisted a noodle round his chopstick. You are Toga Himiko. There was a lull in conversation as they ate their food in peace. No one dared interrupt the peace. The table was like a ticking time bomb as they all finished their lunches. Yurika was sending glances to her friends in the hero course. None of them seemed to have noticed. She was also consistently shifting. Can you stop that? Toga asked when Okako shifted into her seat for the last time. She didn't move, even if she was in Toga's seat for the time being. She deadpanned at the hero student. It got no reaction. Himiko sighed and leaned on her shoulder. She raised her hand over her forehead and dramatically announced, I have no room, whatever will I do? She placed a bit more weight and pushed Yurika off of the seat entirely. She crashed onto the floor. Her hands prevented her face smashing into the ground. The rest of her body went splodge however. Izuku slid out of his seat and everyone followed suit. The hero course all dispersed instantly to make sure she was okay. Most of general education, management, and those who ate of support sat back and let everyone else handle it. A crowd filtered in around her. Yurika pushed herself up to Mina, staring straight at her. Are you okay? She asked. The pink girl offered her hand and Yurika took it, grateful for the help. Thanks for the help, Mina, I'm fine though. A few scrapes, nothing that will stop me. No problem, come get me if you need any help, won't you? Mina winked and threw her hands back. People began to disperse around her other than Mina and Todoroki. Yurika crinkled her brows. I'm fine, anyways, I have these guys anyways. She pointed to the table behind her and gave her best smile. Izuku and Shinsu nodded in assurance that yes, they would make sure she was okay. Toga didn't. She tapped her chin and looked away distantly. I don't even know why it's such a big deal. She isn't scratched up at all or anything. Mina looked ready to destroy whoever said that. She glared at Toga who grinned, showing off her fangs. Just a scratch? Yeah, but what happens if she had been more than just scratched, then would you care? That's my friend. A gentle hand was placed on her shoulder. That's the transfer student Mina-chan. Yurika whispered, and I was invading her personal space. The last sentence was cut off by Mina shrieking. If all the attention hadn't already been on them, it would be after that. Whispers broke out surrounding the replacement for Aitz's position in the hero course. Mina looked away sheepishly and apologized under her breath. Not that it really mattered because Toga was a sponge for attention. She soaked it up. Shinsu and Midoriya had ran off out of the way, but Toga didn't seem to notice. She grinned and answered questions being shouted at her. They weren't all true and Sir Tanatelli would do no favors for her popularity. Okako sighed and sat down beside her. It was just them at the table and she slammed her head on it. God damn it, this is why I didn't want people knowing until you were in our classroom so a teacher could get them to shut the fuck up. She tugged at her hair only for Toga to pull her hands away. A strand might have fallen out but nothing else could. Okako looked up and glanced at Toga. What are you doing? We can't have all of Oka-chan's hair falling out now, can we? That would be horrible. Yeah, well, maybe we wouldn't be in this position if you didn't encourage them to do anything but shut the fuck up. I didn't know it would stress Oka-chan out, she explained. Then, she stood on the chair and yelled, all of your questions suck ass anyways. She climbed down and sat down on the seat. Yurika stared before laughing, that was quite something. You know most people are going to bombard you after school. And in the end we have to leave for our lesson. Izuku and Hitachi likely left earlier to avoid all the people. Come on, this place is huge and we do not want to get lost. Okako chucked her food container in the bin and stood by the exit from the canteen for Himiko to catch up to her. The blondie caught up soon afterwards. She skipped beside Yurika's step towards the classroom. All Might had been properly warned of the new student he would be teaching today. His instructions had been specific from Aizawa, get her formally aqua-tinted with the class before the lesson started. The lesson had to be simple to figure out where she was in terms of agility, strength, and stamina. He needed to give a report so Aizawa could take over teaching as soon as possible with little to no disturbance. The final rule had been that under no circumstances should she play the role of the villain unless recovery girl on standby or himself. The instructions were clear and he hadn't forgotten any of them. The lesson would go smoothly. When Yagi stormed into the room with his usual bravado, the class was watching a girl with wary eyes. She matched the description Toshinori had given to him. She watched him like an overexcited fan. Yurika, right, he should only pair the girl up with Yurika unless another student showed direct interest which was requited positively. What even made something a positive requition? If she wanted to work with her classmates that should be encouraged. Teamwork was essential to heroics, laughed and whispered something into her ear. The two looked as if they had hopped out of a mid-2000s TV show. He coughed, which got the class's attention. Toga looked up at him with an avid attention he only saw when people thought he might vanish from their line of sight any second. She was sucking up his humanus and existence. Her beady eyes followed him as he pulled out the flashcards and read out from them. Before we head out to Gym Gamma we have a new student with us. Aizawa should have already told you all so if she would like to come and introduce herself. She bounded up and scanned the room. All might have missed it if he hadn't done it himself when assessing whether or not jumping in was worth his effort. Toga Himiko. She made no moves to open up about her quirk or interests. Yagi assumed those sort of things had not changed from when he had grown up. Yet, she rocked on her heels and made no effort to open up about anything more. He coughed. Are there any questions for Toga then or should we get going to dash? What's your quirk Toga-chan? How'd you get caught? Aizawa-sensei said you were being reformed and at lunch we looked into it and we're kind of curious. How do you intend to catch up? No offense but you look like a twig. Did you push Yurika at lunch? All Might waved his arms down. His attempt was futile. No one can placate 18 teenagers, even if they were the #1 hero. The kids continued to yell out their questions before Toga answered the ones she had been given several times. My quirks transform and one of my friends snitched on me like the bully he was. I have no say in how anything happens. I just want to have some fun so please can we head to the lesson instead of standing here talking about jack shit I don't even want people to know. The whole room shut up as Himiko continued ranting on, you all just want to judge me and laugh at me when I won't stand for that. I don't have to answer any of your questions because quite frankly, they're unoriginal and you're going to find it all out anyways. Aren't you meant to be heroes? Then why are we even doing introductions? They're a waste of time and UA will kick me out sooner or later. I have Yurika-chan and Izuku and they're perfectly good partners and all I am going to need. She scowled and stormed out of the room. Yurika skidded out after her after she stopped All Might from chasing her down. Himiko couldn't have gone far around the UA halls when she had no clue where to go. There were multiple options but the girl wasn't running either. She walked down the corridor and turned the corner just in time for Yurika to see her direction. She sighed and jogged after her friend. Were they friends? She hoped so, especially seeing as she was included in the declaration. Okako caught up soon afterwards. She grabbed Himiko's hand, effectively gluing them together unless one of them pulled away. Considering Toga's wide eyes and reddening cheeks, it wouldn't be happening anytime soon. You are in the hero course, reforming or not, you are going to become a hero. I can message a friend and tell them we'll meet them there if you want. That way they can't ask questions without being distracted. It works every time, even if All Might's class control isn't the best. Eureka tugged Toga back in the direction of the classroom. Himiko's feet dragged along as she tried to stay in the spot. I don't want to go. No one in your class gives a shit, and All Might isn't even a true hero. That's what hero means, and I don't want bad shit to do with everyone in it for money. Eureka stopped to stare at her. What you want, doesn't matter, Toga. It's this or prison, and let me tell you right now, Gym Gamma with All Might is better option right now, so I would suck it up and come down. I don't know what the streets were like, but you can't keep it up. Things work differently here and you have to play by the rules. True fake heroes, fun or boring. People's lives are at stake, and what we want doesn't matter with the current system. Isn't that how you want us to act? Well, I don't want to be a hero. I was thrown into the course, the most I want is to know what we're doing. It isn't that hard. Oh, and for the questions to stop. That would be appreciated. She gave a shit-eating grin that made Eureka want to punch her in the face. She had been raised better than that, however. I can message someone and ask. She held her phone out as if it was a peace offering. Go ahead. Toga huffed, it's not like I have a choice. Chapter 25, the government doesn't care about the Quirkless, but at least heroes care about the legitimacy of May throwing him off a building. So, what kept you up at lunch then? I was going to show you my updated baby. Do you mind checking that it works? May screeched. She had miniature airplanes balanced in her arms. Midoriya glanced up to see her heaving them to the closest table. He moved out of his beanbag and leaned against the table she was on. What are the odds of it blowing up while I use it? He asked. His finger glided across the surface. There was no dust lining it. It was warm to touch and would burn a finger nearer the back. As well as burning back. My mom's still rather annoyed about that scorched shirt. There's around a 34% assuming you follow all my instructions that you won't blow up. If you do, most that will happen is some soot gets everywhere. Nothing a good old wash can't fix. As for scorching, it's only because the blowtorch just got off it. You'll be fine, Greenie. Now get in. She held folded out the straps and grinned. Midoriya sighed as he fit the first arm through the holes. He pulled the ropes up so the fake wings were pressed on his back and the straps dug into his skin. It was part of the safety procedures May had to use. Had some pressed against his back as she wiggled the wings around. Her clipped fingernails traced up his back as she traced the lines width and height to ensure it fitted. She slipped her hands around the back. The clips may have pulled the machine as close as possible to him, but it wasn't enough. Her hand slipped away and May pushed until the machinery was on his skins. The safety buckles felt looser than Izuku had originally set them. Tighten them, will you? She said as she reached round to his left side. The strap cut into his skin harder. If before had been pain, then this was agony. Midoriya's hands were tightly bound. He could hardly move. No sound came out of his mouth when he tried to complain under the guise of constructive criticism. Words failed to describe how odd it felt to near waddle out of the support department with a mad inventor striding ahead nattering. Midoriya rolled his eyes as he caught up with her. Do you want to start from the beginning? He asked. I was left behind, you know. Oh, right, well then I assume you want me to know what you're actually wearing and how I made it. You see, Izuku, what you're wearing is what I like to call my person-sized aeroplane wings. It's like a mini aeroplane on your back, except it doesn't have to hold people, which made it significantly easier to make. That's part of the reason it's not nearly as concise as I like all my babies to be. You see, those round things are the engines and the only thing that run the risk of blowing up. I didn't add much fuel because this probably won't work, and everyone's showed their disinterest in me blowing up the gyms instead of the hero course. Why are you looking at me like that? I told you, only 63% chance of you getting soot anywhere as long as you follow my instructions precisely. You'll be fine. She pushed the doors to the gym open and ushered Midoriya inside. Izuku itched in the baby. Are you sure this wouldn't be better if you had a go? I mean, you know how to use this thing. He said. His palms sweated as he waited for her response. I've already tried to mild success. I need another subject to have a go. You volunteered months ago when you agreed to be my assistant. So, come on, I'm going to get out the ladder from the storage cupboard so you have a ledge to fall off of. Also, if you're about to crash land, try and fall on your front. It's not that I want your face smashed, but I would rather that than the baby. Now come on, we don't have long before power loader or someone else kicks us out. She clapped her hands and dragged him off towards the highest pillar possible. Midoriya bit his lip. I really believe that I should be your media management and not test subject. And no, May, they are not synonyms for assistant. I'm not even being paid to almost blow myself up or do bodily harm in the name of science. Do you want me to pay you to jump off that pillar? No, I won't be bribed by money to put my life on the line. That's not the spirit. We can make a business. I can give you a promotion to most trusted helper. You get to give all my babies a go and use any of the ones you like for free. I'll also pay for your hospital bills. It's necessary for my success. You'll stand by that? Of course I will. Now get up there and jump. That's what my most trusted helper would do. Come on, we only have around 5 minutes left and I have to make this work. Get up there, Midoriya. He strained his arms up the ladder and grimaced when he stayed still. He wanted to scream out, refused to do it. That'd only be furthering her annoyance at him and cementing his position in life. It wouldn't sting constantly like some kicks would. It absolutely wouldn't scar, and May already confirmed the odds of him being killed were low. He blinked back the tears in his eyes. What was he? A crybaby. He gritted his teeth and pulled his arms up higher the ladder. Hatsum was still calling at him to hurry up. He was trying, Izuku didn't think he could try any harder. Eventually he pulled himself up the top. He panted when he looked down. The height set his fire alarms off. His nerves tingled when he placed his hands on the rock to secure himself. It filled the urge in his hands. He wanted to pull away and pull closer. He wanted to topple off and he wanted to stay safely on the pillar. Every breath felt like he was imploding. It dried his throat up. His arms ached even though he hadn't done much physical activity with them to get up. I want to get down. He half shrieked. The only way down is to jump, Izuku. The wings will do the work. Just tilt your body to turn. Avoid the pillars and you'll be fine. Have a go. Midoriya shrieked again. Oh come on. It's not that scary. You'll survive with the help of recovery girl. Just fall forward. Dangle your legs over if you have to. We don't have much longer now. I refuse to get kicked out. You're up there, the hardest part is over. She barked as he hugged the pillar. Izuku took a deep breath. He was doing this for Hatsum and it would have been a shame for him to give up. There were higher risks if he went down the ladder. He swung his legs over and took one gasp for breath. Midoriya leaned forward and fell, the wings instantly kicked in. The additional centimeters squared made a large difference. He twisted round like May had told him to try. His legs kicked out as they searched for the ground. It upset his balance, but Izuku didn't find himself crying. He laughed through his tears. His eyes closed shut. Even without Winter found himself rushing into everything. His arms were streamlined. If he hit a pillar, his hands hit first. It was halfway down that he opened his eyes. The air in his lungs made his head feel light. The tears stopped as he spiraled down. His legs had stopped flailing as he circled down and down. It was a roller coaster ride that looked way worse than it actually was. The wings were his carriage and Izuku was the beta tester. No matter how close he got to a pillar, he never seemed to hit. The rough edges and hints of silver would approach his face. His eyes would screw shut. He flipped to his side. Better the wings that May could remake than his face again. The crash would never come. Izuku opened his eyes to see the empty stretch ahead of him. As long as he followed the instructions, he would survive. The ground approached faster than he expected, but too slow for his enjoyment. His legs frolied again as he lifted his body up. The air pushed against him as his feet finally made contact to the floor. Midoriya stumbled on the ground. The floor was enticing. He could kiss it. Hatsum ran towards him squealing. She clapped her hands and yanked at his arm. Midoriya followed her lead by pulling the constraints loose. It worked wonderfully. I can't wait to show you what else you can do with this tomorrow. Oh, the updates are going to be glorious, I can practically see them. She cackled. Izuku, you truly are a lifesaver. I'll need you down the support lab so we can improve these babies as much as possible. You were a natural. Why did I not ask you earlier? I actually prefer my feet on the ground. She was gone. Hatsum had ran off on him. The ladder still lay against the pillar. His hands were empty. He sighed and moved to put it in the cupboard when the door slammed open. What are you doing here, kid? With a ladder as well? Those pillars will kill you. Fuck. He didn't have to turn around to know a pro hero was behind him. Midoriya kept walking with the ladder in hand. It's not what you think it is if that's what you're worrying. It was Hatsum, you can ask her tomorrow. I'm still going to have to report this. I'll talk to Power Loader for you. Hopefully you won't get in this situation again. I'm just gonna watch you leave the room to make you don't try anything. Tomoko sighed when Izuku entered her office. She placed the coffee in her hand down on the table and swatted away the steam that wafted from it. Nothing had changed in the month since his last visit. He curled in the chair and looked up to meet her eyes. She grinned and pulled out the same notepad she always had. Would you like to start then, Midoriya? Is there anything on your mind since our last session, or would you like to discuss how becoming a quirk counselor is going for you? She asked. It was sickly sweet. The coffee must have washed away any scratches on her throat, leaving the smooth trail on her words. He could have slid on it. You're not going to ask if I've grown a toe joint then? Isn't that your synonym for hello with me? Midoriya, I guessed you would have booked a session with me before now if that had happened. How are teachers doing with getting you the contacts you need? Have you come across any issues with your quirklessness yet? I need you to face if you have. If anyone's turned you down, it's not because of your skill. It's likely just people being put up by your status. I need to know so we can guess whether this will work. My teachers have been useful. We're doing weekly sessions with my friends to try and educate people about quirkism. She hummed in half-hearted agreement, anything about being a quirk counselor or legal action. That is what you'll need to get anywhere. Roughhousing with quirks is inevitable. Prejudice existed long before the dawn of quirks. You can't do anything about it. But the prejudice holds the law in place because people still stand by it. If we made that unstable, more people will be willing to help with the legal action. This is bigger than me. Tomoko looked unimpressed, but she always looked unimpressed, so it wasn't that large a spectacle. She sighed and flipped her computer round. Would you like to look into what qualifications you need to become a quirk counselor? I'd be more than happy to guide you, assuming you are actually as dedicated as you say you are. I don't want to see you fail, Midoriya. I guess we can have a look. Do you want me to come round to you, or will you flip the computer round to face me? Tomoko flipped it round so he was looking at the screen. She joined beside him with the mouse and began to scroll down the WEP pages. Midoriya couldn't catch any of the top lines as she went by at the speed of light. He laughed. Are you usually this quick going through Google searches? I can't ready anything. Oh, I'm just trying to see one that doesn't look for specialized quirks. I can read this plenty fast enough. You could try adding it to search. Oh? How hadn't I thought of that? You're a smart kid. It's no wonder nothing came up. And there was the problem she was missing. Izuku didn't want the internet to know Tomoko had a quirkless patient. He didn't want to have to put in without a quirk when looking for a quirk. As she typed it in, Midoriya pulled out his phone. He trusted her to nudge him if she found something. In the meantime, he messaged Shinsu and Eureka. He had time to bunk after all. Barking dogs seldom bite. Free do, guess who's struggling finding a job because their quirk counselor is a bag of batshit, laughing face. If you guessed me you would be wrecked. Eureka, why do you even have a quirk counselor? I mean, I had one when I was younger but you're like 16. If you had a control you'd be able to control it by now. Catnip SMTH, I think it's a legal matter. You know, laws being anti-quirkless and all. Free do, it's because I have no quirk to get under control. Counselor won't let me bunk because apparently I need someone to help me my job. She's like my pessimistic job advisor. Catnip SMTH, NGL, I'd be pessimistic if I were your job advisor. Free do, that isn't the point. The point is I just put up had some I deserve sleep guys. And instead I got whatever this is. She also doesn't give a shit. I'm just another patient for her to deal with. A really annoying patient she shake off because what's she gonna say to my mom, She doesn't care BTW, we just don't have the money to be sued. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't do anything for your son. Catnip SMTH, I mean, that's exactly how I would put it. Uurika, if it was your job you wouldn't say that. Catnip SMTH, yes I would. Midoriya, I found something, Tomoko called. He looked up and powered his phone off. It vibrated as Shinsu and Uurika continued to talk about the legitimacy of Shinsu being an idiot on the job. What did you find? He leaned over her shoulder to get a better reading of the screen. The page open had small lettering, both of them had to squint to get a better view. He leaned his hand over and moved it towards the magnifying glass. Once it was zoomed in, the words on the screen looked less jumbled. Tomoko scrolled across. She read aloud the description, but the longer it went on the more she tapered off. Izuku's mouth drew in a thin line as he read further ahead. Close the tab, he demanded. It could get better. Maybe I could read it privately. Close the tab. It isn't going to get better. It's why the text was so small. The website would get vetoed otherwise, and then the career would go down, and this is what I meant by I am destined to become a deodorant sniffer unless something changes. If that was against emitter quirks it would be gone. The government doesn't care to do anything more than an instant threat. Report it? I dare you, and we'll look when I come back for our monthly meeting and it'll still be up. Okay then. She clicked on the little blue button that had been implemented years ago and sent the website off to be checked. The waiting list would take a while. Apparently the content it was promoting wasn't deemed as important to take less than a week. Tomoko swiveled round on her chair. Do you want to continue looking, or do you want to talk about other options or what you're doing with UA? We still have 10 minutes of the session left and I can't let you out early. I think I'm going to be sick. Tomoko didn't say anything. She pulled the bin closer to him and pointed her finger down. If you're going to puke, don't puke on my floor. Not physically. I don't think so. It's just, queasy. That's all. Was it what was on the website? I'm sorry, if I had known I wouldn't have shown you. I would have reported it earlier. He grunted. Tomoko massaged her brow. We're over for today. I don't think there's anything we can do without ruining the mood more. Do any school work you have. I'll start packing up. No questioning why anything relating to his future would somber the mood that didn't seem as if it could drop any further. It was always the way with Tomoko. She saw it. He knew she saw his odds and why he had to fight. There was just no hopes of her taking a step further. His phone buzzed again when the 10 seconds were up. Izuku ignored it, too focused on the routine they had unconsciously set up. Just as he went to exit he asked, can we cancel our meetings? Chapter 26, Toga joins the group chat and it goes worse than you expect. No, whatever you were thinking, double it. Izuku got home to 2 notifications he never expected to see. One was an Instagram direct message from a company he had never heard from. It discussed the potentials for an interview about his experiences and what his next choices were. The message ended with a date, place, wishes for his well-being and a smiley face. Underneath was a text politely asking for a response before the date so they had time to get another podcast ready instead of waiting at the spot. Midoriya went to make sure they weren't frauds. It had become a recent occurrence with their constant growth. The account seemed dedicated to their lies, seeing as the username was tkettle_podcast. The posts were mainly 2 people fucking around in an office. Another Google search pulled up the link to their website and Spotify where you could stream the 2 doing interviews and internet challenges, he assumed. Direct messages -fighting quirkism_ to tkettle_podcast. Fighting quirkism_ 1641, I'll go ask my mom. Fighting quirkism_ 1647, I can go. Admin broccoli. tkettle_podcast, 1649, yay, laughing face. tkettle_podcast, 1649, do you mind deleting the message? Our studio's tiny and we can't fit all 3 of you in. Izuku grimaced as he deleted the messages from his inbox. He swiped out of the app and moved onto the Messages app. That was where the rest of his notifications had came from. The red bubble was showed 500 plus, meaning something had obviously happened. They only ever went above 500 messages when in the midst of an important discussion. As expected, the messages were from the same 3 chats. Shinsu, Uurika had sent him a few individual texts, both of which ended with an apology. The barking dog chat was still being typed in. They hadn't realized he had shown his face online yet. He used that time he had spared to assess the ever-growing situation. The texts were moving at a pace he couldn't keep up with. He tucked his legs closer to close into a ball and threw the covers over himself. It was going to be a long while. He opened Eureka's contact first. The girl didn't have a flair for dramatics unlike her mentor. She certainly wasn't the most grounded person, but at least he didn't run the risk of it all being a fantasy tale. Mad Kid W Notebooks - the girl on the beach. Mad Kid W Notebooks, what's going on? Your messages above are intelligible. I cannot understand them and I refuse to try. The girl on the beach, okay, so Toga made me add her to the group chat. Mad Kid W Notebooks, please tell me that's all there is to this. Please tell me all there is to it. The girl on the beach, well, see, she spammed us for the past hour or so and Shinsu and I have been trying to get her to stop and explain the chats for conversation and we don't spam. She spammed us in our DMs until Shinsu blocked her. Now she won't leave the chat. Mad Kid W Notebooks, oh okay. I thought she added all her crime buddies and you were going mad in the chat. The girl on the beach, she doesn't have admin permission to do that. Fortunately. Mad Kid W Notebooks, and she never will. The girl on the beach, thank the Lord. Mad Kid W Notebooks, you're welcome, smiley face. The girl on the beach, that doesn't imply what I think it does. Does it? Mad Kid W Notebooks, bow down to your Lord. Your God. Your savoir. The girl on the beach, you won't be saying that when Hitachi fist fights you. Mad Kid W Notebooks, oh but I will. Toshi would definitely fist fight God and win. He logged out of the chat before she could respond. The response still came through. Izuku didn't respond. There was a bigger fish to fry called Shinsu. He was still messaging Izuku. The little box that should show their most recent messages was filed with, Insomniac is typing. Midoriya took a sip of his water before opening up the chat against his better judgment. He already came up as online, so there was no harm when he came on and let Shinsu know he had read his messages. There was a lapse in him typing the message as the messages ticked blue. Insomniac, Okako added the girl from our lunch table. Insomniac, you know the one who pushed her off? Insomniac, she's in the Barking Dogs group chat RN and I don't know if you gave them the go ahead because you were busy WMA. Insomniac, PLS tell me you gave them permissions because I don't know what to do. Insomniac, she's spamming the chat, how can you ignore her? Insomniac, oh, you turned notifs off didn't you? Insomniac, look, I told her to stop and took her permission to speak off. Insomniac, so she's been equivalent of Discord muted for 15 minutes. Insomniac, that's the only thing I can do since you're the king of the bod. Insomniac, where the fuck are you? Insomniac, she's a menace. Insomniac, Izuku, how the fuck are these your friends? Insomniac, get online RN. Insomniac, she's breaking my phone, I have no storage. Insomniac, I blocked her and the chat mute ran out. Insomniac, I actually can't do shit RN. Insomniac, can you come online RN? Insomniac, I'm sorry for the spam BTW. Insomniac, I see you're online, can you take action? I generally can't do anything RN. Actually sleeps, I'll remove her from the chat and ask her to stop while you go and deal with your storage. I haven't seen what she spammed yet, but that isn't okay obs. But your reaction only egged her on. Actually sleeps, the only way to get her off is to show little interest and ignore her. So blocking her was the best call you made in this mess, smiley face. Insomniac, and how was I meant to know this? Actually sleeps, it's common knowledge to just block and remove anyone pissing you off. Actually sleeps, the fact she's a psychopath doesn't change that fact. Insomniac, yes, it does because she could stab me at any given moment Izuku. Insomniac, so deal with it because unlike me, people won't care what you do. Actually sleeps, are you okay? I didn't think this would affect you this much. Insomniac, I'll be fine. Just, overwhelmed. Actually sleeps, I'll deal with her now for you. Izuku pulled out of the chat and tapped on Toga's unnamed contact. He renamed her Stabby Stab in his contacts and pulled up the now open chat with her. Not to his surprise, it was filled with images and emojis sent one by one by one. He sighed and slipped further down his bed so he was close to lying down. Midoriya Izoku stabby stab. Midoriya Izoku, Himiko, PLS stop spamming my friend, I don't know if you care or not but you freaked Hitachi out and none of us are laughing. Could you stop just so we can calm down, take deep breaths and not spam? We generally use that GC. Stabby stab, dash. But their reactions were so funny and no was actually hurt? Midoriya Izoku, physically no. Mentally scars might last. Stabby stab, that's funny, tongue sticking out. Midoriya Izoku, I meant they're gonna have a harder time trusting you, which means they are going to pay less attention or get angrier and it's all going to go shit from there. Come on Toga, I thought you were smarter than that. Sad face, stabby stab, you're speaking my language ddd. But I'm also not an attention deprived child, straight face, I will not act out because they don't pay attention to me. Midoriya Izoku, are you sure about that? Are you sure? You sure? Midoriya Izoku's name has been changed to dad friend. Stabby stab, I am sure, smiley face, dad friend, are we gonna ignore the sports festival then? Or the spam you sent when you got muted, that sounds like wanting attention. Ma'am. Stabby stab, fine you caught me. Dad friend, laughing face, stabby stab, can you unmute me though? I'll apologize because I kind of wanna be back in the GCW everyone. This is bullying if you don't and I'll tell the bear. Dad friend, I'll add you back. Stabby stab, yay, laughing face, barking dogs seldom bite. Toga Himiko has been unmuted. Fre sha vaca do, she was practically on her knees. Toga Himiko, I was not, sad face, Fre sha vaca do not believe her, she was. Uwurika, oh yeah. Seeing as this chat is mainly for the Insta ACC, are we gonna give Toga the password or? Catnip SMTH, do not even think of it. Toga Himiko, what account o.o? Fre sha vaca do, she can make posts but we don't give the login until our odds of being zixed for some reason go down. Catnip SMTH, fine. Uwurika, fair to me. Toga Himiko, yay, laughing face, what's it about? Catnip SMTH, quirkism. Statistics and shit. Toga Himiko, awesome. I'll join on one condition. Fre sha vaca do, are we that bad? Toga Himiko, no I just wanted my name changed. Toga Himiko's name has been changed to Vamp Bitch. Vamp Bitch, perfect. Midoriya logged out of the app and wheezed. He fell further down his bed and lay there giggling even if no one could hear him. More time had passed since he expected from messaging. There wasn't time to do his homework or even check his phone despite its vibrations. Izoku. It's time for dinner. Inko called from the living room. He threw himself off his mattress and into the kitchen. Izoku knocked on the door. This was the address the two had given him. Inko was in the car just inside in case he had the wrong place or something worse. The possibility was never talked about, but it was why he hadn't just used his train pass. They were used to muggings. Arranged meetings would be a first, it seemed like too much effort for something no one cared about. He took a step back and waited for the door to open. He pulled down the turtleneck he wore to itch his scar. When the door was pulled open, two people were looking at him. One of them was looking up, he was shorter than Izoku, which was a rarity considering his class. The other didn't have a height gap that was noticeable. Do you want to say bye to your mum or would she like to come in for tea and biscuits? She asked. We really don't care. There's still half an hour or so until we start. She can stay. Her friend nodded. Yep, honestly, it'd be best if we also had her verbal consent to the questions we plan on asking, and time for you to figure out you answer would be appreciated, I imagine. Izoku nodded and waved Inko over. She clambered out of the car and hurried over. What do you need me for? Nothing, you're free to leave if you want. We wondered if you'd like to join us while we wait to go live. We weren't sure on traffic. You weren't sure on traffic. SHH Tatsuo, that isn't the point. Do you want to park somewhere proper then have tea and biscuits? Tatsuo rolled his eyes. Inko answered, I'd love to, but yes. I really should park my car somewhere better. She laughed and ran down the steps again into the car. The speakers on Tea Kettle welcomed Izoku in the meantime. Tatsuo led the way into a small kitchen. He held out his hand as they pulled up at the table. Karasuna Tatsuo and the person getting the food is Tanaka Akiko. Izuku nodded and looked around the kitchen. It was small, likely because this was their workplace. Akiko had no idea where the food she was claiming to be getting was and had forgotten to turn the kettle on. Tatsuo rolled their eyes and moved poured the water in for her. She turned around, "We'll start when your mum gets here. For now, is there anything you want? We have digestives." Midoriya shook his head and fidgeted. Despite the building being unreasonably cold, he found himself sweating in his jacket. It wasn't that he was cold either. Just sweaty as the two speakers wandered around getting everything ready. The doorbell rang, signaling Inko's return to the building. Akiko gave a sigh of relief while Tatsuo went to get the door. Midoriya also went to get up to follow him, only to be pushed down. The two arrived a few seconds later. "Okay, we have our notes written down here if you would like to read through and come up with whatever answers you fancy. We'll try to stay to script," Akiko said as she pushed the same brand of notebook he used towards him. Tatsuo nodded. "We also counted for the odds of what Twitter would ask if we let them. Down to you and your mum though." He sent a glance Inko's way, and if she didn't hope better she'd say it was a threat. "As long as it isn't personal and not hateful, you can go ahead. Right? Then I guess we ought to wait until we can start. I'll go get the biscuits. I promised you biscuits." Tanaka stood up and started to rummage through the shelves again. The tin was on the counter. No one said anything, quite happy to let her waste the time. "So, what is the tea kettle actually about? I looked into it, but most of the results were minimal and unhelpful. I've never actually watched it," Midoriya mumbled. He drummed his fingers on the table while Karasuna seemed to think of the best answer. After a couple of seconds he said, "Wait, what?" Behind him Akiko had started to wheeze. She placed her hands on the tabletops and thus found the jar she had been looking for and laughed even louder. Inko chuckled beside him while Izuku coughed to hide his grin. "I don't know what the podcast is," he repeated. Both speakers' jaws dropped as they seemed to contemplate what he just said. Tanaka looked at him for a good minute in silence. Without a hint of emotion she said, "Well, that was stupid. I guess. But we can't exactly turn away now, can we? So can you please explain?" Izuku looked over to fully view the two. Tatsuo sighed. "That was still really stupid. Are you going to explain to me or not?" "Okay, so we're a podcast and we talk about current social issues and old social issues people like to ignore nowadays. Like taxes, which used to be a huge cause of anger and free healthcare. And free healthcare," he echoed. "Basically, anything that's blowing up in the media, and if there's nothing new then we talk about the older stuff. Like, as Akiko said, free healthcare." Inko shuffled in her seat before leaning back. "I guess Izuku's account has been taking over the internet then. It's been a pleasure meeting you as well. Doesn't your recording start soon though? Do you need to set up the cameras or microphones? I'd be willing to help." "Yes, we do actually. Come on up. We'll explain how everything works." They hopped out of the kitchen and went up the stairs. On the second floor was a door. Just a door. A plain white door and a lantern hanging above it. Not ominous at all. Not at all. Akiko pushed the door open, revealing 4 chairs and a beanbag. In front of all of them was a small microphone. They flashed red when the lights turned on. A cable had connected them all together. It was simplistic. When Izuku sat in one of the chairs he sunk inwards, much to everyone's amusement. They're new. That explained why. Everyone else followed suit and fell into a chair. Not everyone was swallowed up by the cushions. Izuku tapped the cushioning over the microphone only to find the tap 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 echoing around the room. It wasn't picked up by the other microphones, but everyone could hear it. Ink tried to swat his hand away. Tatsuo followed suit with the tapping. That was how the rest of waiting period went until Inko left the room to leave them to their own devices. Everyone paused after that. Before the tapping could resume, Akiko cut in. "I'm going to start recording now. So can you two stop tapping and we'll begin?" "Right. Okay." She pressed the record button and they went live. Her phone was placed facing upwards so that everyone could see it. It was Tatsuo who started talking. "Hello, welcome to Tea Kettle. Before we get started, please remember to check out our website and subscribe to us if we enjoy our content. Today we're talking about giggle, today we're talking about snort. There is nothing funny about this topic. Laughter, shut up Akiko. Talking about quirkism. We have a special guest today who we plan on interrogating. He's going to introduce himself first, and unlike you, he won't give a long spiral about making sure to follow his Instagram. Will you meet Oriya Izuku? He would have shrunk back if not for the upturn in both of their mouths and cheery tone of voice. Can I give a shout out to my Instagram? Go for it? Karasuna encouraged. Okay, then before you continue listening, go follow Fighting Quirkism_ for me information. It's Admin Broccoli here. Do you two want to start? Yes, Admin Broccoli, what's the first instance of quirkism you can remember? They asked. Izuku shuffled in his seat. He traced the first burn from Katsuki that had ever scarred. It was tiny and hidden in a cluster of others. He knew where it was because he always soothed there if anyone mentioned them. It was a habit ingrained in him from when he was 6. The scar wasn't even the answer to the question. I must have just been diagnosed. I don't remember what actually happened, which is probably not helpful, but that's when things got worse for me, I guess. Kids are harsh, what can I say? My childhood nickname came from around 5 or maybe 6 years old. I can remember how I got that if it helps. Izuku spluttered. Only if it helps with the question. Well, we were learning to read and my tormentor comes up to me with my name written down and he shouts, "Hey Izuku, did you know you can read your name as Deku? Useless. A bit like you are." Or something like that. The teacher didn't do anything. Nobody did actually. They all just sat around and laughed at the name. It followed me until high school when no one I knew went there. UA, obviously. Can you tell us this kid's name or anything about him? We can make sure he gets justice if you want. I don't want to hurt his chances in becoming whatever he wants to be. He didn't know it was bad, he was only following what all the other kids did. He helped me at the start, I swear. Okay. I mean, we couldn't send him to court anyways based off the laws and all that. Bet you 10 yen he would pull the self-defense card and the court wouldn't even question it. Only 10 yen? Akiko asked. She raised an eyebrow. Never mind. What are your thoughts on that? I have to agree that it's pretty shit. Pretty shit is an understatement. Shit. I mean, I understand the laws were rewritten for everyone with quirks, so crimes like quirk use had to change, but it's odd they made people with no quirks some kind of superior to them who would be at no disadvantage in a fight. I know historically it was to try and prove a point, but their law keeps two mindsets in people. A, that quirkless people are just as capable in today's society when we aren't, and B, we oppress them, which is kind of the quirkist trump card. It's kind of stupid, but people keep using it. How do you suggest we fix this then? I mean, it needs to change. Quirkless suicide rates are higher than ever recorded, and despite being 20% of the world and being 5% of Japan's population, they make up over 50% of our homeless population. Action needs to be taken, and neither you nor I am going to deny that. Well, we need to speak louder, I guess. Prove that we aren't as capable while making them listen to us. We can be taken down quite quickly on our own, and there's no way we could outnumber everyone. I guess we would have to use our words and make people see sense. The law isn't going to change any way. He shrugged while the two whispered amongst themselves, discussing the next course of action. I guess that's one way to do it. Peacefully is normally the best way to start a fight for rights, but Midoriya, Tatsuo held out a sign for him to read. A confirmation that they were going off script. Have you ever considered a protest? Several times, but I don't really think that's the way to go. I mean, no one would come and join us, would they? Yet. You're being heard slowly. If you had the audience though, would you start one? A pin dropped and everyone heard it. They looked over at Izuku with patient smiles as he thought over his words carefully. Before he could pull out or do something else stupid, he nodded. Akiko nodded to her microphone and Tatsuo looked ready to burst as they waited. He sat far away from the microphone, but they could hear him regardless. The recorder picked him up regardless. The quiet, "Yes, I would," was recorded on a tape that would go public before the end of the day. Alright, that's where we'll leave off for the day. Thanks so much for listening along with me today. If you enjoyed, please like and comment down below. It really helps with the algorithms. I look forward to seeing you next time. Ciao for now, lovelies.